Welcome to the newest episode of Wilder Wolves Hall of Fame Mode Fandom. My name is Wilder Adams, and today is an unexpected episode. Wasn't expecting to be behind the microphone 14 hours ago, but today I'm so lucky to be joined by up-and-coming Timberwolves reporter Andrew Dukowitz, and we are officially celebrating Naz Reid Day. So, Andrew, how are you doing, my guy?
Good. Naz Reid, for the second time in his career, decided to not even test the waters of free agency, ink a deal with the Wolves. And I mean, there's a reason he's a cult figure in Minnesota, right?
Yeah, I mean, is this the second greatest day in Minnesota sports history in the last 5 years? And the other day was when Naz Reid got extended the first time. I mean, this is pretty high up there.
I mean, it's very rare that somebody chooses us, right? Usually we're on the losing end where a player leaves to go to a coast somewhere. But Naz Reid, I mean, to his credit, he told us all season that he loves being here. He told, Tim Connolly told us all season that they want Naz back. And I mean, they got it done. Again, it's a testament to Naz and his want to be in the Twin Cities that I'm sure his agent was making some illegal calls in the background to see what type of money and offers were out there. But It really means something when you're deciding to sign and re-sign with the team before the open market even starts. I mean, Shams, if you look at his Twitter timeline, there's nothing else really on there.
Kevin Durant, take notes. I'm still not over the KD thing, man. Like, how do you not want to go to a team that just went to back-to-back conference finals? You know what? But we flushed that down the toilet and we take in the present, and this present is pretty glorious. Naz Reid last night, signed a 5-year, $125 million extension with a player option year 5. So he is here long-term, and I'm doing something a little different on this show today, okay? So I got my Naz Reid graduation cap from last month when I graduated Arizona State University. It looks like I graduated U of M with the maroon, but today I am going to wear this cap the entire episode as we talk about Naz Reid, basically debunking any level of journalistic credibility I have. So it's okay. So we're wearing this today, okay? All right. Congratulations, Naz Reid. You got a graduation cap. Actually, at the Thunder game last month, bro, I went to the game in Oklahoma City, game 2, Western Conference Finals, on the way back home from Phoenix. And I was wearing this cap, and Naz Reid gave me a fist bump. And ever since, I haven't washed my hands.
So, you are going to get so sick this fall.
Yeah, I was like sick twice in the last month, and I was like, is it the wind or is it the fact that I haven't washed my hands twice in the last month? You know what I'm saying? But
sure. As a medical professional for my day job, please wash your hands. But also, like, I'll be honest, that I think I had sent you a Twitter DM against the Thunder when they're in Minneapolis because I was sitting in kind of the media overflow section with the K-fan guys. And all I could see in front of me was a graduation cap that said Naz Reid. And I was like, well, there's no way someone else did it too. So that has to be wild.
Yeah. Yep, I got into town for game 3. It was a pretty cool game 2 experience because like I went in, I was wearing the Naz Reid cap, and then the Wolves people thought it was so cool. So I got on the Instagram. That was fun. So you know what? Shout out to Naz Reid, man. This is for you, okay? This is for you as we actually break down the meat of the extension. So I just want to start right away behind the story of this because I remember a couple weeks ago, people saw that picture of Tim Connolly and Naz Reid talking. It looked like it was maybe like Minnetonka or something. And people were like, does this mean he's leaving? Does this mean he's staying? Like, what's going on here? And obviously, it turns out he ended up staying. So my first question for you is just what went behind the extension process?
Yeah, I think there wasn't a ton to it, honestly. You know, when you talk to a GM, you kind of got to always assume they're lying to some extent just because they're not going to tell their true intentions to a journalist because then everyone will know. But Tim all season was pretty stoic and confident and like, no, Naz Reid wants to come back. Naz Reid wants to play here. And anytime we talked to Naz Reid about it, he was like, yeah, I want to come back. I want to stay here. My feature story up on Zone Coverage today actually is just kind of cataloging the last year of like all of these breadcrumbs where in the playoffs, I asked him about being on this run with Ant and Jaden, and again, he's like, they're my brothers. Nothing is ever going to change that. Nothing's going to separate us. And it's like, yeah, all right. Well, he's probably telling the truth now that he's re-signed and he matched his deal to Jaden and Ant that are all going to be on this team for the same amount of time now. You watch him in practice, and Naz Reid is glued to Jaden every day. They do shooting drills together. They do their workouts together. They stay here in the summer and work out every day at the Target Center together. They are like legitimately like real life best friends. And, you hear all that stuff throughout the season and you just get this feeling like, oh, this guy actually just really loves being here. And then you see like the Bill Simmons and the national people saying like, oh, Naz Reid, like, why the hell would he stay in Minnesota? Why would he stay for less money? Why would he stay for a lesser role? And at the same time, like everyone in that writer's room, from John Krasinski to, dude that's writing 15 articles a day for SI, had the same sense that like Naz Reid wasn't going anywhere. And I think at the end of the day, that's all it was. Tim Connolly, I think, wanted to reward Naz for his play while also setting up like long-term stability for the guy. And I think Naz Reid looked at it of, I live in Minnesota year round. I really like living in the Twin Cities. I have like, between Parkway Pizza, the Naz Reid signs, your hats. I mean, it's not lost on him. Like I remember after WrestleMania, I asked him about the Naz Reid towels being in the stands, and he's like, "Oh, it's awesome! Like the support I get from the fans is insane." He still remembers like his first game playing in Brooklyn, some guy catching him on the street and saying like, "Oh my God, you're Naz Reid. Like you're going to be awesome. Like good luck tonight." And like that stuff matters to the guy. So I think at the end of the day, it was a pretty simple deal to get done. Just they needed to get the money right. And 5 years, 125, it may seem like a little bit of a, if Naz is only playing 20, 25 minutes, it's probably a little bit of an overpay at first. But it's also important to keep in mind that this is going to be an ascending contract. So the first year of it's probably only going to be 20, 21, 22. And then the last year of it'll probably be closer to 30. And 5 years from now, a $30 million contract is going to be half of a supermax. So it's going to be pretty affordable. Like looking back, the Jaden and Naz contracts, if those guys are both, 2 out of the best 4 players on the team, it's going to be looked back on of, wow, we really got this guy for a steal.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of layers to this, right? Because of course Naz Reid wanted to stay here. He's aware of the organic fandom that is built around this fan base toward him. And as likable and lovable and fantastic as he is, if he goes and signs with the Lakers, if he goes and signs with the Pistons, he'll just be another good player on their team. And you're not going to get that level of just support, probably money with the CBA this summer and the free agency status. And Minnesota's made back-to-back conference finals. It feels like a pretty big no-brainer. My big question now is, I know Naz Reid, John K. I think it was John K. He talked a little bit yesterday about Naz Reid. A priority of his was like, if he went somewhere else, he's a starter, right? And the big question now is, what does Naz Reid's role outlook look like here? Because like it's kind of layers up, right? He comes in as an undrafted player. It's one thing to be a low contract undrafted player. And then it's another thing when you become that mid-level exception player, which he was the last couple of years. Now he's making $20+ million. That's an implication. He's the primary player on the team now. So my main question is, does this affect his role at all next year? Does it elevate next year? How does it affect the Julius Randle conversation? What do you think there?
So I do want to add just a little more context to the free agency side of it real quick, of just no one had money except for Brooklyn. Yeah. And I have, friends that write for Brooklyn, and they were pretty confident that they were going to like send a a big offer Naz's way to come home. Naz is from Jersey. Like Brooklyn's not that far away from New Jersey. Like he would have been kind of treated as like the hometown hero coming back. And ultimately, like Naz Reid hates losing. So I think being on the back-to-back Western Conference Finals teams meant something to him too. Like fan base, winning, brothers as teammates, like all that stuff factored in. And other than that, like it would have been tough to get a deal done, because if he were to go to the Lakers and sign for like $35 million, for that to work, it would have had to have been a sign and trade because the Lakers don't have cap room. And for it to work for the Wolves, since they're in the first apron, the Lakers would have to send 90% of Naz Reid's salary back to Minnesota, which means Minnesota is taking $32.5 million back, which would not work with their cap situation.
Yeah.
So then you'd have to get a third team involved. And like the amount of mess it would be for like the Lakers or Houston or any of these other teams to trade for Naz Reid, it would have just been a headache. So I think like Naz made the best decision for him, but it also was probably the best decision for the Wolves.
Yeah.
And teams looking into how could we acquire Naz Reid, like to match that 30 million salary hypothetically. Like you're sending out like an Austin Reeves from LA, you're sending out Derek White from Boston, and I don't think ultimately those teams thought like the upgrade from Naz Reid, the upgrade to Naz Reid from a Derek White or from an Austin Reeves was worth
Pretty
it.
lateral. Yeah.
Right. And I think that might be what we see with Nikhil too. We'll get into that later, but more on the Naz Reid and his role. I don't think it's going to change a lot this year. I think in a perfect world this year, I think the roster like rotations will be different, because last year, the first couple months of the season, there was so much emphasis on these dudes don't know how to play together because like they just met each other a week ago. All of our starters in the top three need to play 35 minutes and there's no wiggle room. This year, they all kind of know how to play with each other. The only rotation guy that might leave is Nikhil, or that's expected to leave is Nikhil. And then you have like TJ or Jalen taking that role. Rob's probably going to have a bigger role. Like they all mesh. So my expectation would be like Rudy's probably playing closer to 25, 28 minutes a night instead of 38. Julius is probably closer to 30, 32 instead of 36. And that means Naz is probably closer to 30 minutes than 21, 22. And I think if I had to put like money on it, he's still on the bench, but he's playing starter minutes, which I think for Naz, that's probably he's probably okay with it. Obviously, you know, if a Rudy deal materializes, this sets you up to have a center to just slide in for Rudy, and you don't have to like worry about getting a center back. If Randle opts into his player option and leaves next year, Naz has been shown that he can play the 4. And then, like you said, it gives them an opportunity to have this hyper big lineup where, I mean, Julius and Naz have both shown they can play a little bit at the 3.
The front court pacers. That's basically what it is, right?
Right. And it just gives them options. So I think the deal this next season will probably result in Naz getting more minutes, but overall, I think he's still probably the 6th man. And Naz is just an interesting dude. There's not a lot of like selfishness in his personality. So I think as long as he's getting opportunities, as long as he's getting minutes, and now that he's getting kind of paid what he's earned, I think I don't think there's going to be much of a question that he'll fit in and he's going to be pretty happy about it.
And I think there's flexibility here now, right? Because like you mentioned, Julius Randle, he might be here next year, might not be, might be here in 2 years, might not be. Rudy's contract is, I wouldn't say it's short-term or long-term, it's kind of intermediate, that 3-year deal range. And there's just flexibility now. And if you're going to have flexibility, do it while leaning into the youth. Like if one has to go, don't let it be the 25-year-old when Anthony Edwards is 23 years old. And you're trying to build this second wave of young players. Of course, Beringer, Zakarski's got all these 7-footers now to see which one could work next to Naz and post Rudy era. So I think it's gonna be really interesting just on that front. And I'm just gonna ask you now. Minnesota is pretty close to the second apron now, and when I was listening to the post-draft interviews, it sounds like Minnesota is trying to get under the second apron this year. So I saw reports yesterday about Dante DiVincenzo and the potential for him being shopped. According to Athletic, I saw on a Minnesota Sports News post on Instagram. So, what's your expectation now? How they're going to maneuver around this roster going into free agency?
I think to me the most well, first let's break down the second apron thing. Like again, GMs and ownership, you kind of got to just take them at their word until something else happens. And Tim kind of explained it of, it's not so much a money issue because they're paying the luxury tax no matter what this season. Like they're over the cap. They're going to be in the first apron. Mark Laurie and A-Rod obviously have, Bloomberg money behind them and had enough money to buy the team and throw a very lovely pizza party for us on draft night. So shout out Wolves organization. Anyways, I don't think it's so much of the money issue. I think what it comes down to is, last trade deadline kind of sucked. They weren't able to make a deal because of that second apron. You can't aggregate salaries. If you want to aggregate salaries, you have to get out of the second apron first. And I think it just really handcuffed them from even adding like an ancillary piece. Like if they would have said, man, we just need a better backup point guard at the trade deadline, it was near impossible to even get like an $8 million backup point guard.
Yep.
So it makes sense. I think they are going to probably be as close to the second apron as humanly possible. Like I wouldn't be surprised if, going into training camp, they have like $35 in cap room because that's, again, it's not a money issue. I don't think it's they're trying to cut costs. I think it is just opening up flexibility. So for the rest of free agency, the kind of cap charts I've looked at is if Julius opts into his deal, the Wolves only have about, depending on where Reid's first year is, they have between like 2 and 5 million in spending money. Zakarski, I think, is expected to be either overseas or the G League. My assumption is they'll probably sign him to a two-way and he'll be in the G League and just taking up a roster spot because he's cheap. And then Bernier is going to be on that rookie level around like 4 million. So if you look at the current roster, we assume Julius is going to opt in because similar to Naz Reid, Julius getting traded is a lot more difficult than I think people realize on paper. Like it just makes sense. Like, oh yeah, Julius could opt in and we could sign and trade him. But like Julius has to agree to the place that he's getting signed and traded to. And then the place he's getting signed and traded to has to match his salary within 90%. And it's the same problem. If you're trading Austin Reeves for Julius Randle straight up, how big is that upgrade for the Lakers? Or if you're trading, unless you're like trying to blow it up and you're rerouting him somewhere, it's going to be a hard trade to navigate. So I would assume he is back at least next year up until the deadline. He's living here over the summer, genuinely likes doing it. He's a big four-wheeling and fishing guy. So like this is his speed. And that leads us to free agency where Nikhil, no one knows what his value is. I've heard everything from no one has cap space and he doesn't want to play for a losing team, so he might have to settle for a mid-level exception at like 12 million to there's teams out there trying to get him for like a 3-year, $60 million deal. But with Nikhil, it's the same problem. No one has money, so it would have to be a sign and trade, which means Minnesota's taken $17 million in cap space back, which they can't do if they want to be under the first apron. So it's all of this is to say it's going to be so complicated for Nikhil to get paid. If he does leave, let's say he decides to go to Atlanta for like 2 years.
That's the team, right? That's the team.
That's the one I keep seeing. Let's say he says, all right, I'll go to Atlanta, 2 years, 25. then the Wolves will have one open roster spot. They'll have about $4 or $5 million to spend on it, depending on where Naz's salary is. They can open up to like $8 million if they were to like decline Josh Minot, decline Luka Garza, and replace them with two-way players. But first apron teams get a aproned mid-level exception. That's about $4.5-5 million. You can get a good player for that. I mean, that's a guy probably at the end of his road that wants to compete. That could be a Chris Paul. That could be a Tyus Jones. That could be a really capable backup point guard. And if I had to bet, that's probably the route they go, is Nickeil leaves and they replace him with that $4.5 million slot. And it is someone that's, you know, like a Tyus, who, if Rob doesn't work out, you have a very stable guy to split minutes with Mike. You're probably not raising your ceiling a ton with Tyus, but it's competency. Same with Chris Paul at this stage of his career. If he wants to come and split minutes with Mike, you're probably not raising your ceiling a ton, but it's competency. The last thing I would add on it is, you know, free agency starts July 1st. I would kind of caution Wolves fans. There's probably nothing going to happen July 1st or the 2nd or the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th. I think they're going to wait until after Summer League before they make a decision. I think they have a lot of faith in Rob taking a step, developing. I think if they go into Summer League and they see that he's running the offense, he's not turning the ball over, his shot looks more consistent, I think they go, all right, let's run it with Rob. Let's just get a veteran to sit on the bench like Joe Ingles and roll the ball out. And if Rob struggles at Summer League and it looks bad, then it's probably all right, let's go see what's out there. If it's a Tyus or Chris Paul, what could we get if we package Rob and Dante together? And maybe they do make a trade. I would really, the other thing I'd caution Wolves fans on is I don't think there's a big move coming. Tim Connolly, obviously, in his press conference said he has nothing cooking up at the moment, but if something presented itself, they're not going to be risk adverse. But I think they're also very conscious of, you know, let's say Trae Young says, I hate Atlanta, I never want to play in Atlanta again. To get a Trae Young, you're putting together like Randle, Dante, every pick you have, and Rob. And then what's, you know, Trae obviously raises the ceiling, but then you only have Naz off the bench. And I don't know how far that team goes in the playoffs if you have to trade all of your depth.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I would say, first of all, it's not just because a team doesn't make a giant move every summer doesn't mean that they're not serious, right? And we saw the importance of the year 1 to year 2 in the Cat Rudy iteration, how important that chemistry was. So, like, if they don't make a massive move this summer and they bet on the young talent just developing and integrating itself in the rotation, I think there's still plenty of reason to be excited about. And one thing I'd like to add, I'm pretty sure, like 93.7% sure, by going over the second apron 2 times in 5 years as well, your first round pick automatically sinks to 30, or with whoever is in the second apron for a second time in a 5-year window. And I just want to say next year's draft, right?
Quick correction. So it's 3 out of 5 years.
It's 3 out of 5. Okay.
So you're allowed 2 out of 5.
Okay, so they're good next year. Okay.
So they could do it next year, but then they would have to be out of the second apron for 4 consecutive years, which that shoots your one bullet, right? Like if you feel like we are at the cusp and we're going to go into the second apron, you kind of need to save that second year for that moment. I don't know if that moment is this summer.
So my 6.24% came into fruition in that case. It's okay.
I'm not going to blame it on you, because if you look on Reddit and if you look on the internet, like 50% of the websites say it's 2 out of 5 years and 50% of the websites say it's 3 out of 5 years. It's 3 out of 5 years though.
Okay, perfect. Because I was going to go on this really, really well thought out monologue, I thought, about how next year's draft is really good because a lot of the NIL players stayed next year to get that money, which is why the second round stunk this year. But why next year's second round will be good. And plus, the top of next year's draft is pretty ridiculous. So you want to have a pick that is fair in that draft class. So it's good to know 3 out of 5, but it sounds like they don't want to shoot that second and final bullet next season. So yeah, it's going to be very fascinating to see what they do with Dante. What's your expectation there? Do you think they're going to make a cost-cutting move with Dante like that rumor that appeared yesterday? Do you think he sticks around? What do you think?
I think he's here next year. Exit interviews, Chris Finch really spoke about, Dante, a lot of the reason that he had streaky parts of last season was on Finch, and Finch took accountability for it of like, we really didn't know where Dante fit in for a long time. We were so focused on getting Julius figured out and getting Ant going and Mike coming back and being healthy that they really just kind of punted on Dante and told Dante, hey, this week, this is what you're doing. And then the next week it would be like, hey, this week, this is what you're doing this time. And I think they really want to give him a shot at what he could be as like that seventh guy coming off the bench. And he's a proven winner. I mean, he's won a ring with the Bucks. He did great with Golden State when he was out there. He was awesome with New York. I don't think they're going to move him unless like something materializes that they can't like turn down.
Like a Colin Sexton.
Yeah, like if it's Dante and whatever the filler would be to get to Colin Sexton, I think they're probably like, okay, maybe we do that. I also think Dante's contract every year is going to look better on paper, and he is a good veteran. Like he is a guy that, speaks honestly. He's able to talk to everyone on the team. He is a really quiet dude, but he also just has this kind of leadership to him that I think Finch values. I would be surprised if he got moved, which, I could see it, but I don't think it would be a cost saving thing.
Okay, perfect. So we've gone over the Naz Reid extension and that not really affecting likely the Randle conversation. You're expecting him to get extended in the next, or not extended, but to just opt in the next 36 hours. Is that correct?
Yeah, his deadline is this Sunday to decide if he wants to do his player option or decline it. My guess is he's going to accept it, and that news will probably come out tomorrow. The Wolves are really good at like giving people their flowers, so I'm sure if he's already accepted it, they're going to wait until like Sunday afternoon so that all the Instagram posts can be like, oh man, Julius Randle's back. Cool. And not like take away from Naz's stuff as well. The other thing I will say is I wouldn't say it's a 0% chance Nikhil is back as well. He genuinely loves the city. He loves his neighbors. In the playoffs, he said that all of his neighbors that live on his street had balloons and signs out for him, like saying "Go Nikhil." Like kids wrote like messages to him in chalk on the driveway in the street. And he was like, they even cared so much that they would go out and like put bags over the signs to like make sure they didn't get wet in the rain. And like that's not, it seems silly, but like that stuff does matter to these dudes. Like it's cool to live in a place where you're appreciated. And more importantly, maybe is if Nikhil only gets offered like a 12 million mid-level from somewhere, who's to say Nikhil's not going to say, you know what, I can take a 1 year 7 to stay in Minnesota, and then next year explore free agency when 15 teams have money, as opposed to just Brooklyn. So I wouldn't bet that Nikhil's coming back, but I also think there's a much higher chance that he's back than maybe fans and like people around the league expect, just because I mean, if he puts together another season like this next year for the Wolves and then enters a free agency where multiple teams have cap, he probably is going to be closer to getting that $20 million contract.
That story you gave, about the fans, like the chalk, the support around his house. Isn't that not Hall of Fame mode fandom right there? I mean, that's what Minnesota fans do, man. They're the best at that stuff. Even with like the Vikings, like with your hat. I mean, didn't Kirk Cousins have neighbors shovel his driveway? And fans do that here. That's just the culture here. And I think Naz Reid feels it. I think Nikhil feels it. I'd be shocked if anybody on the roster doesn't feel it, because there's definitely a vibe. Once you come in here, unlike Kevin Durant, who's always just like, you know what, I just want to go to state taxes and warm weather. And I don't know why he didn't want to come here, but I'll tell you this, nobody's going to be shoveling his driveway in, where is he at? What? Houston.
Yeah.
No one's going to be shoveling. Obviously, it doesn't snow in Houston, but
no, we don't need to add that part. Just no one's going to be shoveling his driveway in Houston. Just leave it there. We don't need to add context.
I want to use this to final free agency prediction for you before we end the show. What is your official free agency prediction with what happens with everybody?
I think Randle comes back. I think Minot is they probably turned down his team option. And I'll just say, like, Minot's such a good kid. Like, being around him, I got to do a charity event with him and his mom. Like, he's just a good kid. Like, I hope whether it's the Wolves or elsewhere, like, I hope it works out for him. I would assume Garza's probably back just because he is a really good vet at the end of that bench. He's really professional. He works out. He does everything right. So Minot gone, Garza back, Randle back. I think Nikhil gets an offer from somewhere that he can't refuse. I would love to have him back. And then in terms of who they replace that Minot and Nikhil role with, I really hope it's a dude like Tyus. Just a guy late 20s, early 30s, solid player, good dude that can just come in and just kind of be that in case of emergency starter.
So do you think Mike is out of the rotation next year if they bring it back up?
No, Mike, and I know this is controversial on Twitter. Mike, I would anticipate, is going to be the opening day starter, and that he is probably going to play 18 minutes a game. It cannot be talked about enough how much he means to this team. And it's different than I put a post out there of just quit putting Mike in trade talks because he's as almost as untouchable as Jaden. And I got back a lot of well, Cat was untouchable. And it's just different. Mike is at a stage of his career where they're not going to trade him. He took considerably less money to stay here. His kids go to school here. Finch loves him. Conley loves him. He is the guy that if Dante has a bad game, Mike is the guy that takes him aside after the game and talks to him. He's the guy that is in Ant's ear. He, even at 37 years old, is one of the first guys in the gym, stays late. And then you talk to the players, and every player on that team talks about how Mike is not just one of the best teammates they've ever played with, but one of the best people they've ever been around. And they legitimately want to win this for him. And it sounds win one for the Gipper, Rudy, all of that. It sounds cliche, but when you're actually talking to these guys and you see it in Dante's face of we don't know how much, fear in his face of we don't know how much longer he has. We have to win this. I think that guy means so much to this team that he will be playing. I think he will start the season as the starter. And I think he still has 15 minutes in him. I mean, you can do a lot worse as your backup point guard than Mike Conley. That being said, Rob's got to take it.
He's got to, yeah.
If this team is going to raise their ceiling for next year, Rob has got to take that job. And we just don't know. Rob's a good kid too. I can attest he's put on weight. He looks a lot less skinny than he did at the beginning of last year. He's worked his ass off, tail off. I don't know if we can swear on this, but he's worked his tail off, on his jump shot, getting his lower body stronger so he doesn't have ankle issues. he's just got to take it.
Yeah, until Rob Dillingham 6'5", 225, I'm not sure that's going to happen. I'm just kidding, but no, yeah, you're totally right. I'm really excited to see what Rob Dillingham does next year because I have super high hopes for just him. And you hear Matt Loy talk about him, it sounds like that optimism is very genuine. And I think you made a great point on Mike Conley. I just think even if he had a pretty steep regression last year, his archetype and what he brings to the team, Minnesota just needs so badly that unless he was the world's biggest liability, he was going to be an impactful player at a certain front. His leadership, his efficiency, and just a guy who comes in trying to operate the offense, keep it simple, not trying to do too much. We have so many players who want to create or need to work on the turnovers and some of the decision making because it's a young roster overall, that his archetype is so critical to this team. So it makes sense why, until he literally can't play anymore, why he would bring, at minimum, a considerable role on the team even next year.
Yeah, and that role, I think minutes wise, we're not going to see the 28-minute Mike Conley nights. We might see it for the first week of the season, but I think even in his exit interview, he was like, yeah, like 15, 18 minutes is where my body feels right. And that's probably his role, which means there's going to be 33 minutes of starting point guard role that needs to be filled. And from Tim Conley, Matt Lloyd, even Chris Finch, I know he gets a lot of kind of hate online of like, oh, you just didn't play the kid. I think there's just more context to it of, Rob, when he did get minutes, his defense, he plays with a ton of effort, but it's not great. Finch will compliment him on his defense and like the effort he plays with, but he's just small. And he had the worst assist to turnover ratio on the team of anyone that played over like 7 minutes. Yeah. Like if you're going to be a backup point guard, you can't turn the ball over like that. And then you throw in that he's midway through fixing his jump shot. And I think Finch and it's never just a Finch decision, but I think Finch and the GM and like the assistant coaches just said it's probably better to just give him a redshirt year and try again next year than risk blowing up his confidence and like putting that bad taste in everybody's mouth.
Yeah, he's a 19-year-old point guard and he's 6'1" a little over 6'1", 170 something. It isn't the end of the world that he couldn't play on a contending team right away. How many rookies this year would have? I mean, rookie Darius Garland certainly wouldn't have. And you can name a lot of good players who played their rookie year without politics probably wouldn't play. It's really hard to be an impactful guard in the NBA year one. So I think people want to throw the bus label out right away. That's just so hyper reactive. I thought we saw such good signs when he had a stable role during that injury stretch in early 2025. And he's a rhythm player. He's a volume player. Probably getting like the garbage minutes isn't good for his confidence either. He probably needs a leash to be creative, to be bold, or you lose a lot of the juice that makes him special. So there wasn't a role for him this year, but there has to be one next year. And then there are valid questions. But yeah, Rob Dillingham's will be really exciting next year.
Yeah. And I will say if game 5 of the regular season, Rob Dillingham's getting DNP, like everyone should be out there going like, what are we doing with this?
Grab your pitchforks, everybody.
Right. Like if that's the case, like I think it's perfectly warranted to grab pitchforks. I just, it's just so hard at his size going through what he was going through with his jump shot. And you're right. If they were just giving him 5 minutes at the end of the bench like that, it's not going to go good for a guy of his play style where he needs to have the leash to miss 3 shots and then make 4.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we saw that after everybody got healthy, his impact level, after he said the NBA was really easy after the Utah game, it wasn't easy at all. And a big part of that is probably because everybody started coming back and just the rhythm. He didn't get the same rhythm opportunity. And that's just the way it was year one. But fortunately, it's a 5-year window with him until you really have to pay him. So is it 5 or is it 4? I think
4-year window. 4. But like your point stands.
Not football.
Like,
Not football. Yeah.
he does not need to be good. I mean, he for the Wolves' sake, he needs to be good this year, but like they can really slow play his development. Like, as long as he's making progress behind the scenes and they're willing to invest the time in him, like, he doesn't need to be perfect this next year. Like, if he's struggling from shooting and getting 20 minutes a night, I wouldn't be surprised. I think where Rob really like excels is his court vision is so much better than I thought it was coming out.
That was a very unfortunate notion for him because even in college, his pick and roll passing was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I kind of compared him, and this, you can tell me if you disagree with this comp. He kind of reminds me of a shorter LaMelo Ball in terms of some of the creativity with the ball and, you know, the twitchiness, the movements, everything looks a little unorthodox, but he has the ball in the string. And I think he has a good year in him next year.
I think he does too. The LaMelo Ball comp, like, for his playmaking is, I'd say, pretty on par. Like, he does have that flashiness to it, the flair where he's trying like behind the back stuff. His ball handling is unbelievable. Like, his first step is probably the best on the Wolves. Like, that first going from planting to just getting by someone, like his like cutback crossover is unreal as well. There is like things that he does where it's like, okay, this is an NBA player. The issue with Rob is if you're going to play next to Anthony Edwards, you kind of have to shoot 37-38% from three, and you can't be a complete negative on defense because like Ant can't play the best guard on defense for 40 minutes a night. Jaden's going to be getting the best wing. Like, you kind of need a guard to play next to Ant that can at least hold his own against like a Trae Young or something like that. I mean, no one can really like guard a Trae Young, but just not make things worse. The other thing I really like about Rob is like he can throw lob passes, which no one on this team other than like Dante seemingly can do. And Rob can do it.
Sometimes Jaden has those.
Jaden sometimes. Mike 2 years ago could do it. I don't know what happened with his weird floater lob thing this year, but Rob like can really pinpoint like, all right, Rudy can jump that high. That's where I'm putting it. And I think if he gets a lot of run, you're going to see like 2 or 3 lobs to Rudy a night because the Rob just gets it.
We're just I'll see you in Vegas in Summer League. It sounds like we'll both be in Vegas, which will be fun. You're there on the 10th, right?
Yep. I'll be there from the 10th to the 18th. Again, for any fans, anything that's down there, I'll be covering the team by all means. When you see me sitting alone watching Kings Grizzlies, feel free to come up and say hey.
Sicko mode right there, bro.
I am one of those guys that like I will watch the Wolves game and then I will promptly leave the media seating and go sit in the stands and watch 11 hours of basketball. It's what I do. So by all means, come say hi.
Andrew is the level of sicko. He's like, you know what? I really want to see how Nick Clifford's doing in Sacramento.
It's kind of bad.
Noah Penda, what's going on in Orlando?
It's one of those things where it's like I have a job, like a day job. I have a wife. I've kind of checked off those boxes, and now I'm like in full Ryan Russillo mode, where it's just like, you know what? I would like to watch Charlotte's G League team. I think I'll tune into that today.
Man, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, and I'll make sure to catch with you in Vegas. We'll run into each other 100%. I'll be there from the 10th to 20th. We'll cover some Timberwolves as well during that stretch, and I'm just ready for the Rob Dillingham, Beringer alley-oop connection and Zakarski shooting threes like Brook Lopez. Man, I'm ready for it. So that is going to be a great way to end Wilder Wolves. We will be back on Tuesday, and it's going to be fun. We'll see what happens over the next few days, and if there's any other updates. I'm going to focus more on the ownership perspective early next week since it's finally approved, and that's going to be super fun. But thank you all once again. This is Wilder Wolves Hall of Fame Mode